I want to start with your background. So although you presented a little bit, but I was really fascinated to see that you started with IT Auditor, and then something clicked in your mind. You decided to change it, and eventually you have a second profession, which is organizational transformation coach, right?
Yeah.
And you do combine those two. Why I'm so interested in it, because over time, when I started and was for a long time in auditing, and then we moved to running operations, and we had, among other support functions, HR, where I got really involved. And I also got in business with Coaching Federation. I was among the initiative group which set up ICF Armenia, and I took few trainings, and I really liked the idea of coaching, when you don't push, when you don't persist your point, but you kind of pull your client. So please, a few words how you started in IT Audit, how you changed, and then we will continue.
Yeah, thank you. So how did I start in IT? I did not plan to start an internal audit career. We go back to 2003, I think. I was studying mathematics and informatics. My path should have been a mathematics teacher. I was, as a child, very good in mathematics and history and philosophy. But my mom said, look, mathematics will bring you the money to pay your bills and to pay for your family. So leave psychology and philosophy aside.
Yeah, very familiar.
Right? So I put more time in mathematics. I had a cousin that was a mathematics teacher, and he was training me to go to Math Olympics. I did not end up as a country Olympiad, but I've been to the national ones. So I went to informatics. And I ended up to do an Erasmus in Italy. I was doing programming, was the was the middle of the programming era. And I was supposed to be a consultant in Oracle database, for those who know what I'm talking about. And I joined Deloitte for that, but they've done it in Italy. And they've done a spin-off like a month within my settlement. And the partner came and said, look, we really appreciate you, you are really a good student, but we are gonna go off with the partners. And I thought, yeah, that's a long path from a student to a partner, so they will not take me. But they say, we will introduce you to another partner, and he does something with internal control, and I thought, okay, don't know what is that, but yeah, I needed to finish my studies. So that's how I ended up in internal audit, internal control. And honestly, I loved it. I thought that it is what I really wanted to do, because I liked programming, I liked the problem-solving side of it, the debugging and all that stuff, but I did not like to stay behind my computer. I still had that interest in psychology, philosophy, and I didn't have enough interaction with people. So yesterday I was mentioning that for me, internal audit is a lot people business, not only a control and processes business. From the very beginning, while I was doing IT audit and going in these bunkers and auditing mainframes and big machines that do not exist anymore today, was fascinating for me to talk to the people that were there and find out how did they work, what processes they were having, but also what actually they were doing every day. And sometimes I was told, like, you know what, you spend a bit too much time on, that interview. You had half an hour, but for me it was fascinating to talk with the people. And that brings me to maybe that human aspect and what is actually the human element in what we are doing with the processes and in what we do in organization. So I think I didn't have, you hear very often people say, oh, I discovered this and I had a revelation and this is my true calling. I think I organically grew into that, was just a match that just happened for me. Was now a revelation that I came to one day saying, oh, it is what I really like. And when I started with coaching, and to me was really combining very well. I couldn't leave internal audit. So I kept on getting professional qualifications in coaching. I kept on doing internal audit, and at the point my husband was like, you really need to stop now. You also have a family. Like, we need you as well. You can't carry on with two professions, so many, trainings. And I said, I like both. I can't leave my right hand and only work with the left. I am lucky enough to have both. And I find over time a way to combine, and I'm lucky enough now to do that. And my way to combine it is to look to processes and improving processes by putting the human factor in the middle of the organization. Therefore, I talk about organization transformation and creating human-centered organizations. And maybe we hear a lot about this talk now, but for me is a real thing. It's not only talking, is walking the talk. Because when I look to processes now, I don't look to process as a process only. I look to process with the perspective of how is the human involved in that process able to operate in the process? Is he or she able to utilize their abilities, their strengths within this process? Does the process, in the way it was designed, create any limitations? Because we looked normally to it from the other way around. Long story, huh?
And what is the other way around?
The other way around we look to a process design without necessarily considering the human factor. To me, the human factor element came to attention from the aviation industry, and I wrote it down because I was really keen to give it the right definition. So what is actually human factors? Is a scientific discipline concerned with human abilities and limitations that concerns designing the system of work that supports people in their work rather than designing systems to which people need to adapt. It has to do with everything related to person and context that impacts human performance and safety. And when we talk about safety, it is psychological and physical safety. And this was a term coined by the aviation industry when they discovered that the pilots had two buttons that were looking the same. One was to bring the wheels down at landing, and the other one was to, I think, brake. And they were very similar, and they were close to each other. So a lot of crashes were happening.
They just mixed them.
Yes, because they just mixed them. And when they realized that, they said, okay, so human error, human factor will always be an element. But then how do we design the processes to make sure that we consider some of these elements?
It's interesting you say about this because so much resonates between us. In my experience of auditing, I was always coming to this conclusion that most of our problems are around people. It's not processes, it's controls. But when we struggle with implementing the audit recommendations, from follow-up to follow-up, we see the same issues outstanding. And I saw that they will not be implemented unless we have something changed. And that something is usually people. And that's what eventually triggered us to go and do it by ourselves, which was not easy, by the way. But if you, I've learned in Colombia that if you change nothing, nothing changes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you want a change, you have to change something around, and that something usually comes to people. You can move them, you can bring in new people, new blood, but it should be. Otherwise, everyone is stick to the comfort zone.
Absolutely. And I'm absolutely aligned with what you're saying. And what I've seen with, for example, the team I'm building now is the people I'm working with, they were not necessarily involved or knowing what internal audit is. The moment I start looking into their strengths and what they really liked and how they liked it, and saying, okay, how can you apply those strengths and those skills into this area that you're supposed to work? and working together with them to say, okay, you are really very creative, you are really, I don't know, very social. Okay, help me with developing the strategy for the internal audit services. Help me with the events. Help me with going out to clients. Then I have colleagues that they are nothing in that area, and they prefer to be very detailed and very, I will not call it introvert, but not necessarily push too much out of their comfort zone. And I'm not saying not to push them out of their comfort zone, but let's say where they are their best, they are when they do other things. And I said, would you like to help with the methodology, with the templates? And they were like, yes, of course. So now we are working with their strengths. I think it is hard enough to collaborate with someone who is opposite from you in their strengths. I tell my team, it is important to know your weaknesses, we call them. I don't prefer this word, but let's call it weaknesses. Areas of improvement. It's good to know them and to work, but spend most of your time on your strengths. Because if you team up with someone whose strengths are your areas of improvement, then we really power it up. And it is already hard enough to find a way to collaborate, because it will be someone who is not like you.
Okay, so going back to the framework that you have in mind, would you a little bit talk about this? How you start from yourself? I like this part because quite often when we talk about improvement, change, transformation, many people are reluctant. They wait for someone else to start. They usually think that it should come only from the top. The leadership, the management, they should do it, and we will wait until the wave comes to our shore. And I really like the way you started.
Probably, I would say I did not have a choice. It is not true, because where I am, it is because I made the choices I made. Having lived in so many countries, I had to continuously change and develop, to adapt. But at the same time, I was mentioning earlier, it's not about constantly adapting, it is also conserving part of your strengths. And it took me a while in the journey to discover my own strengths and to understand myself. But I think when you get out of your comfort zone, little by little, you will arrive to discover your strengths. And I've had great mentors and that great coaches myself. I cannot say I've done that alone. I met people who saw in me things that I was not aware of, that trusted me, that gave me opportunities that maybe I did not see necessarily as opportunities at that time, but they were. And sometimes I had to take a step back before I could take, or maybe 2 steps back before I could take half a step forward in a different direction. And Steve Jobs, I think, said, things only make sense when you look to them backwards. You can connect the dots looking backwards. And I think that really resonates with me. I can connect the dots now looking backwards, and I can say, yeah, that step back actually was an opportunity to step forward. I didn't have a recipe. I probably, with a mathematical background, I'm very analytical to myself. I wanted to constantly understand what and how can I do something. Because when you are on your own, for those of you who maybe are also abroad, you'll know that when you are on your own, you cannot stay and relax to help, to wait for help, or to wait, because you might not always have a support network. So you need to be a self-starter. You need to look to yourself. So that was a lot for me.
I think you raised a very, very, very relevant point. You mentioned about mentors. Mentoring, coaching, they go hand in hand. But I do really like to stress this point for our audience, for our people, because I myself also have people whom I consider mentors. And in the central bank, we initiated a mentorship program. But I do believe it's like I will say something strange. It's a one-way street in a sense that you get your mentors, they don't get you. It's about connection, of course, but it's you who get the benefit from mentor. They also get from it, but it's your first responsibility. I make a parallel with studying, with learning. I truly believe that learning and studying is the responsibility of the student, not the teacher.
Absolutely, no.
Because you can get much more when you take your responsibility. You assume, like first line assumes the risks. When you assume the risk, you do much better work. And the same here, I would like to promote this idea to tell our people that go and get your mentors, and this audience, this community is a good chance for talking, finding people, peers, but also mentors. They are very important in our lives.
Yeah, I think surrounding yourself with a network that can support you and promote you. I discovered two says maybe to what you're saying about, you can provide information. There is a saying in Romania, but probably in other countries as well. You can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make the horse drink the water, right? It is the same. You can have the best mentor, but if you do not learn or you do not improve, or it stops there. So surround yourself with mentors, with the people. Never be the smartest person in the room, because then you are in the wrong room. You need to be somewhere in a room where there is a lot of possibility for you to grow. There is maybe the other thing in here is about the opportunity, we said it yesterday, to constantly learn, to constantly grow. It is a journey. And it is a journey in internal audit. I think it is a journey in every assurance functions. Is that mentoring scheme of which you are saying, I found it the first time in another IA chapter where I volunteered to be a mentor. From there, I volunteered to be a coach. And as you say, they are similar but slightly different. And what I liked in that was the possibility to just be a sparring partner to other professionals. And I learned as much as well, because I learned from others' perspectives.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your model of human factor. Starting with you, then the team, then the organization, how you link those three together.
Yeah, so I was telling about how I work with the team, or what I do in my other hat as a coach is a lot linked into team effectiveness or team performance, because I don't know if any of you is familiar with a book called The Culture Map of is one of my
There's a translation of this book in Armenian. One of our banks sponsored.
Perfect, then I really advise.
I read her book with Hasti, the Netflix CEO. No rules.
Okay. So.
But she became famous with this culture map.
Yeah, it's a really good book, and I advise you to maybe have a look and see, especially if you work with teams, which I think most of us does. What it is in this book that really resonated with me, it is not about the individual skills. We all have individual skills. It's about the interaction that we have in the teams we are working. And that for me really resonates, because you can have the best person in the team with the best skills, the best abilities, but if that person is unable to collaborate and to take the best from the others, forget about the results. I always say that the results are at 3 levels: individual level, team level, and organization level. And we need to connect them 2 ways. For the organization to get results, you need your team and the other teams to get results that are connected into the organization results. But how does the team get their results? Through the individual getting results. However, those results cannot be just in silos. They need to be linked across the 3 layers. So you're saying my model of 3 layers is individual level, team level, and organization level. And there is this term that you'll be familiar with, strategic alignment, across the 3 layers, and then there is, personal alignment for each individual. Sometimes when I do workshops with teams, what I'm looking to start with is, you also will be familiar with this, the individual why. Why do you do what you do? Why are you actually at this conference today, let me ask you? It's a nice day, it's a Sunday, it's beautiful outside. Why are you sitting here listening to me and Ara? I mean, Ara, I know, is a very famous person, very wise, but why are you sitting in this room?
Learn.
We invest.
Yeah, so you have a motivation.
She's working for a fund.
She's working for you. But that is an interesting reflection. It is, what it is your deep why? Why are you here? And then you can go to your team and say, why do we do what we do actually? How does that link into what the organization needs?
I think you're now coaching the audience. Because you ask questions.
I'm not supposed to ask questions, okay? I'm just supposed to answer.
Just the opposite. What I find fascinating in coaching is that you ask questions. And that's how
Open questions.
open questions help you open people.
Absolutely, I like that.
When you put your statements, it's harder to get the open conversation. Well, when we are young, we learn something, we think this is the end of the story of the world, we know something, and we start teaching or telling others. But over the years, we get more wisdom and we understand we know very little, if anything, and we start asking questions.
Yeah, the more we know, the less we know.
The more we know that we know nothing.
Indeed. So did I answer on the framework?
Yeah, I would like we continue, because as I said, there are 2 ways. You either start with the organization, then team, then end up with yourself, or you put the other way around.
I think it is both ways that are important. I always start with the individual, because I think that's what justifies putting the human factor at the center of the organization. It starts with your personal drive, your motivation on why you do what you do. And then the team level. It is nice to connect your statement to the team statement and then to the organization. And then you walk it the other way around, from the organization down, because it also is a lot of value in reassessing what you said at once. So is a constant process, right? It is, once you think like, okay, I do this because of, and this it is my why. Within a couple of maybe months or within a period, you'll go for changes, and that will slightly change. What hopefully will not change are your values. I mean, unless they get better, but not the other way around. But I think it is a 2-way street, and it is a constant adjustment or refining of that 2-way street.
Tell me about your articles. You wrote articles for ISACA, right?
Yeah.
So ISACA, the IT audit, still keeps you...
Yes. I wrote articles for ISACA because we have this impression that the people who are busy with technology, they are having less soft skills. And when you take them out of the technological environment and you bring them to the board, it's like they fill you with so much technical things that you don't know what you think they are talking another language. What did I wrote really nothing big, nothing philosophical. I wrote a very simple article about coaching skills for IT auditors, and then I rebranded it for internal auditors because I wanted IAA to also publish it. But actually, it applies. I was talking about a couple of the elements I presented yesterday in the part of building trust, about how do we bring some of the skills I was trained as a coach into my daily work as an IT auditor, because I was put it forward nicely and gently by my colleagues to present the toughest issues to the board or to the senior management. And the saying was going like, it happened that most of the time I was one of the few women or the only women in the room with a lot of IT managers, specialists. And they were saying, yeah, you can present these things to the board. You know, you have that empathy that we do not have. Come on, you can. I was like, is that because they will not listen to me? Is that because they really listen to me? I'm like, why? But I think after a while, because I'm also a bit stubborn, they were listening because I was not leaving the table. So a couple of times they left and I was still sitting there and I was like, oh, I will wait for you until you have your coffee and we can continue this conversation. What I realized is that I was actually applying these skills, but somehow, I don't know if unconscious, because I was preparing for it, but they were really benefiting me. I was applying this listening, I was going the way, so I knew my facts. We were saying yesterday, come with your facts, and then you can talk truth to power, but it is the way we do it. So I thought, okay, maybe it will benefit others to share these skills that I learned. And those was all around listening, around using empathy, around understanding the other point of view, let them talk instead of trying to convince them, hear why maybe they will not implement that recommendation that I was giving them. And maybe, I don't know, as you said earlier, the root cause sometimes is deeper than what we find out in an audit. And that resistance is not because they don't want to listen to us, but because they see problems or impacts that maybe we did not discover. Very few situation was about personal ego and really unwillingness to take it in. And at that point, coaching also taught me about roughness with kindness. Very paradoxical and contradictory term. Like and links into the courage we are talking now about internal audit, have the courage to say it how you hear it and still with respect and kindness. I did once say it in a board, I heard you for the last 15 minutes, constantly interrupting and not willing to listen to the full story. I understand that you disagree. I agree we disagree, and I will report this further to the board. And I thought I lost my job. I probably lost it, and my boss saved it. But that I had the courage to do because I used this new learning coaching skills, and that's what I wrote about.
Good. Tell us how you sell coaching.
Oh, I don't know.
Because frankly, coaching in our country is relatively newly introduced. There are some pioneers, champions, but it's not widely spread in the organizations.
The honest answer is I don't know. I would probably have been richer if I had the formula. I think is an educational process, is teaching organizations how it can benefit them. What I see is that in my situation, I was joking yesterday, the undercover CIA, I use a lot the fact that I'm an internal auditor and I know what I'm talking about. And then when I do coaching, I use this, I can go further in not only on the surface, I can understand also the hard stuff, not only the soft stuff. And when I'm in internal audit, I say I can understand the soft stuff, not only the hard stuff. But I don't have a formula. I think is a constant talking with the organization. And I don't think really is about the selling in itself. I think it's about having that conversation and showing them how it can really change the organization and what it is the benefit of having coaching. And it is that reframing. I wanted to do the definition. One of the things I'm doing very often is like defining the terms. What do we really understand with coaching? Because people have different perceptions. And I myself...
The problem here I experience is when you tell someone you need coaching because they ask for training or for consulting or for something else. They feel they need something, and they fail to correctly identify what they need. And I feel they need coaching. But you say you need coaching, and it doesn't resonate because, as you said, we understand different things under coaching.
And now let me ask a coaching question. What do you mean with they need coaching? That's maybe the way to go to them is say defining what they need instead of using the word coaching. This is what I'm trying sometimes.
In a couple words, it doesn't resonate. I think people give it importance when they see it works with someone else.
Yeah.
Rather than you tell what is coaching, how nice it is, how can it improve your situation. But if they see it happens here and there, eventually they see benefits because it's very, very soft. It's like selling
intangible,
air, right? It's very intangible.
Intangible asset.
The great companies like Google, like Apple, they had coaches.
Yeah.
Those coaches, like Bill Campbell in Google, he was sitting in Google and Apple, and Jobs once demanded that he resigns from Google, and he said, no, I will sit in both companies. I don't take your information back and forth. I just help you to open up. And he was, I think, the sports coach, actually, not a business coach. And much of the coaching is coming from sports.
It is, and I think at the end it is very similar because what do you do for coaching? You have people performing at their best, physically and mentally.
Yeah, you help them to open up.
Yeah.
To stretch. And why should our audience, our community of assurance providers, the auditors, the risk people, the compliance people, why should they get interested and learn what is coaching, how they can implement coaching in their daily work? Because it could be nice, we are talking about it, but they have to link it to their performance, right? Because risk and audit, it's like control, risk matrix, risk assessment, all the formulas, incidents, you name it. We have all these buzzwords.
I think, in my view, there are two elements on why it will benefit anyone, and especially our profession, to work with coaches. One, because it will help you work with your strengths, and when you work from your strengths, you have more energy to put in work. You enjoy it more. Then it also helps to elevate personal and team impact. We talk a lot about elevating internal audit impact. I truly believe that soft skills and understanding your strengths and how you work with others, how you communicate with others, which it is all part of this coaching, mentoring if you want, but in particular coaching, because it goes to letting you or helping you going through a journey where you discover yourself. It's not someone telling, if I come and I tell you what it worked for me to, I don't know, do the job I'm doing, it will not be that it is working for you. Because we have different experience, we have different strengths. By helping you finding your own path, where you utilize your own strengths, that's where the power sits in. And it is individual and team power, it is what we were saying, how do you connect it to the three levels? I do enjoy very much to go to work and to utilize mainly my strengths. Yeah, I'm still, not only do that, but also I like when my colleagues are coming and they get energy, because we spend a lot of time at work. They get energy because they concentrate on their strengths. We do coaching in our team. Now, we don't sit there and do all the time coaching, but there is a new, you probably heard about managers or leaders as coaches.
Yes.
Or the servant leader. It is this mentality.
They leadership.
Yes.
So there's also in leadership different concept, like the manager cannot coach because coach should be kind of outside or independent, but utilizing coaching skills in management, it also makes sense.
Yeah, and I think we'll go away from the word management, because management comes from Industrial Revolution. Right now we are in the AI era. We don't need to manage people. We need now to manage the AI. What do we need to do? We need to coach people. We need to help people discover their passion and their purpose and what they are good at, because we need to manage other things now. So I think we are in all this revolutionary area where we redefine our ways of working and how do we really work, because we are still sitting on the industrial revolution design that doesn't really work.
So if I try to summarize what you said, the link or the meaning for our people is we get out a little bit of all those tables and matrices and the technology, and we communicate more. What I see sometimes lacking is the one-on-one or communication, oral communication between people. There are emails and memos going back and forth without really getting to the table, discussing, agreeing, maybe debating, pushing back and forth, but getting the common ground together rather than in closed communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I can add something to that is, if you go back to your teams tomorrow, identify with your teams, if not tomorrow, maybe when you have a team meeting, is that what is each team member's strength? And how can you utilize that strength into your team to maybe start with that small change and shift on working in a different way? Because as we started this talk, if change doesn't start with you, it doesn't happen.
You used the elevating a few times, and I know it's now on the AI global motto. But it's interesting that back in 2018, I published my article with Internal Auditor magazine with the title Elevating Team Performance. And that was based on our real experience of putting some performance evaluation metrics for our team. And the way we structured it, we thought about what we want to have in our team, how we see our future, where we want our internal auditors to be. And that was resting on 5 simple principles or pillars. The first one, in the core, in the center, we put team player. So unless you are playing with a team, unless you are a team player, then your knowledge of standards, of different concepts, of different disciplines doesn't help much. You have to play in a team, and at that time our motto of the Institute was progress through sharing. And I really liked it. I used it very, very often, because sharing is what makes us stronger and gives us better performance. And then around this core we had efficiency, which we defined in number of items like the quality of your work, the quantity, etc. But then to build on that, in order to perform, you have to have qualification. That was the third pillar. And then we said we want us to have visibility, so that when you walk in the organization, everyone should recognize you, that you are the auditor, but in a good sense, not scaring of you, but knowing you are an expert in, I don't know, COVID or IFRS or operational risk or whatever. And the large, and last but not least, quite important, we said we want our people to take the responsibility, to get the initiative. And we saw over time that when we have new people, it's a little bit hard to initiate something. But over time, when you get used to the team, your role, and the organization, you have more knowledge, you have more insight, and you can contribute. And responsibility is not only to do what you are supposed to do, but going outside your box, your comfort zone, and coming up with new recommendations, suggestions, the way to improve your work and the teamwork. And I think it really helped us to grow to a point that when we also moved outside the audit.
And thank you for mentioning that, because when you shared the article with me the other day, I looked at it and I thought, we do this because we are a very young internal audit team and service where I'm working, and you just gave me a framework that I can share with my team and say, this is exactly the point, and another team did it and they've been successful. So thank you for sharing that, because I think there is a lot of value in putting it in a framework that everyone shares and understands. And it is common understanding, right? We know what we will do now, so we'll follow on your path. Your steps.
Because initially it's in your head, but if you want others to follow, to take it, you have to put it in a framework. You have to describe. And actually, I'm getting to maybe final part of our talk. What makes us to get into this stage? As you said in the beginning, you moved from audit to somewhere else, although you are still in auditing. But my experience is that 4 years ago, I moved from audit to operations, and I thought, okay, I'm not anymore in audit. But I realized that the profession, the institute, it gave me so much in the way of structured knowledge, in the way of network and all the great people I knew both in Armenia and abroad. That actually it brought me back in the institute. I'm not doing internal audit actively now, but there are many different angles or faces that you can interact with internal audit. I'm now more in the role of audit committee, but you can write, you can contribute, you can be auditor, you can be audit committee, and you can also serve community. For instance, like Komitas does, is now not in audit, but we still, the profession keeps us, it gives some energy.
It is a cool profession.
And you can, I think everyone in life will benefit by coming and going into profession. You don't have to be auditor for all your life. But the skills, the knowledge that we gain here, they rest with us. They help us for the life.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the few professions that allow you to work, not one of the few, it is the only profession in an organization that allows you access to all the levels of the organization and to see so much in an organization. We learn so much, even if you stay a year, 2 or 20 years in this profession. I think, as you're saying, there is a benefit in going and do something else and sharing that knowledge. What really keeps me in the profession, apart the curiosity and the access and the impact you can have for an organization when you know and you can connect the dots. I think it is not about the depth of the knowledge, which some of us we have because we have some SME expertise in an area, but is the broader and how we connect the dots, the ability to connect the dots and to see trends that in internal audit we do a lot. So that, for me, allows me to give something back. And I don't know, might be that stage of, of profession, of life where it's not about the pay, it's not about, it's about the people, and it's about the feeling I get by contributing, by adding value. And that keeps me in the profession.
So how we get to this level of contributing, writing, talking, doing something for community? Because I think it's a natural path.
Yeah, I think anyone can start doing that from, you don't need to wait for 20 years of experience or 15 years of experience in internal audit to do that. You can do that because there will always be someone who has less experience than you and you can pick up a role to mentor, or you can keep up a role to coach and to help someone for a CIA exam, for, I don't know, another type of exam, and you give back in that way. The idea is that I think, and you will know that, when do you learn more? It's not when you learn, it is when you start teaching or when you give back. That's when you really learn more. Is not when you really sit in a training, and that's what you really integrate it. So I would say start today, tomorrow, with helping someone, mentoring someone. Don't wait. I've been with this idea that I needed to, I don't know, arrive to have X years of experience, or I needed to have that role more in order to be able to talk to someone or share my experience. And I had a great mentor who said, but did you see those younger professionals that I started yesterday? They don't know. They haven't done anything from what you've done. Go and share it with them. And you're talking about mentoring. There is this concept that probably you know about reverse mentoring. That it is also very valuable. It is insight in reverse mentoring. Everyone has a different opinion. I think teaching others that you can be listened to, and I can learn from anyone, because I can learn from anyone if I'm willing to learn. It comes with willingness. It is important. So yeah, it is a growth path. The more you know you are, you grow and you can share. But you can do it from the first step, from there, if you are willing.
So it gave me an idea to draw a parallel between what you said and finance, because I'm doing some talks and podcasts on financial literacy. In finance, they say the common perception is that you have to earn money to start investing, but then there is the reverse side. You start investing without waiting for making a lot of money, because you create a habit of saving and investing whatever you save, then you can start by little. So my point is that we don't need to wait for 20 years. We can start doing whatever by helping others, by building our knowledge, by writing, by talking. I know that for many people, talking, especially in between of the audience, is going out of your comfort zone. For me, it was not easy, but I realized I have to do it. I have to do it many times, and that I'm teaching. Every time I go to class, I have to go out of my comfort zone. I have to talk for 3 hours in front of the students. So I really like to invite our audience, our people, go sometimes out of your comfort zone. Start talking, start sharing. Over time you will see that you get the benefits, and it's not so scary. With this, I really like to thank you. I think we had a great podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this. Thank you.